very much to Ed. I've had a lot of help.
Hello there.
Yeah, it's because your native resolution is so much lower than the projector.
Okay. Great. So, the first thing to say, I think Ed's going to talk a little bit about this, is that for anyone who's interested in the relationship between OSM and Wikidata, Ed's website is amazing. You can have a really great time. You can spend hours and hours using this site, and I'm just going to do a very quick demo, although I expect Ed may be doing one as well. And I put in the name of eDale, which marks the official beginning to the Pennine Way, and it's found a relation in OSM. And what I can now do is I can start to add Wikidata tags, and I've already logged into OSM. And when I put the eDale relation into the matcher, it found various places within the eDale boundary area. And I can now progress to adding Wikidata tags to each of those places. And here they are. So eDale itself has a match, but there's a little bit of confusion there because there are two candidate matches. So I'm not going to add a Wikidata tag there, although I can do that separately if I want to. It's also found eDale railway station in both OSM and Wikidata, and it's matched them based on their name, and also the fact that they're in proximity. And then it's found a church, a chapel, a pub. And this pub, for anyone who has walked on the Pennine Way, I think is very close to the official starting point or the ending point. So that's a really nice one to tag. And then Crabbeney, I don't know what that is, and Ivy House. So I can then progress to adding Wikidata tags to these. And then I can save that. I'm just going to do that right away. So I'm using my works email. Sorry about this, I haven't logged in earlier. The reason I'm opening this is so that you can see that the name of the relation is now protected because it's got a Wikidata tag. So there it is. See the padlock? This is one of the features that was mentioned earlier in ID. So I'm going to move on a bit now. But thanks very much to Ed. I've had a lot of help from people since getting involved with OSM and Wikidata. I've been amazed actually by the support that people in both of those organisations have given. I received great support from Rob, who I think is still here somewhere, and Greg as well, and Harry and all the London people, and I've been absolutely blown away by how helpful people have been, and also how clever as well. So that's been fun. So this is a map of the London ultra low emission zone, for those of you who don't know. And one of the data sets that I was interested in relation to this was electrical vehicle charging stations, because the hope is that in the future there's going to be more electrical vehicles. Whether you actually think that EVs are a good idea or not, I'm not going to talk about that now. But certainly having electrical taxis in the middle of London is probably a great idea. And my workplace released a data set of EV charging stations, and I work at City Hall, and we got the data from TfL. And TfL also added the attribute as to whether the charging station location was a charging station for taxis only, because they basically want to get all the cabbies using electric vehicles. If a cabbie wants to buy a new vehicle now, it can only be an electrical one. I think they're made in Coventry, they cost about £40,000, but I think the old diesels used to cost about 30 grand, so it is more expensive, but considering that they're driving around and idling around and just generally causing a huge amount of pollution, it's a really good way to try and get taxi drivers using cleaner transport. That will benefit everyone. And also the TfL bus fleet is also going to go electric as well. So, taxis. This is a picture from the pillory of a taxi charging station. You can just see down here, just about, there's the station, and there's the road marking to show that it's for taxis only. And so I decided I was going to try and add this data set to OSM, and rather than just like idiotically going on OSM and trying to add loads of records, not knowing what I was doing, I started contacting the Talk London group, and they were really good, and they gave me some ideas about how I could also tag the stations as well. And Dan, who's been great, suggested I mark the taxi stations as private and then add a taxi attribute to them. So that's what I decided to do. And then I decided to have a look using Overpass at existing stations in the central London ultra-low emission zone. And you can see there's a few stations in there already. But it doesn't say whether they're for taxis or not, and so on and so forth. So hopefully if we can get that data set on there, then taxi drivers can access this information using apps based on OSM or TfL related software. So on the advice of Rob, again, rather than just blindly rushing in and adding loads of TfL data to OSM, I believe that historically TfL did give some bus stop location data to OSM, but it turned out the bus stops were all in the wrong places, which is not that surprising. So the idea was to try and canvass opinion from the community in London, and a few people then helped me using this software written by Ilya Zero, who's quite famous OSM developer. And so the way it works is that people can complete surveys on locations. And the other thing that his software does is it looks for existing stations. So rather than adding a new record, you can find what's called conflation, which is really nice, so you're not just duplicating information. And so, for example, this marker here is an existing record that's already in OSM, and all I'm doing with the software is adding tags, which is in this case just the capacity and an ID number. Now the choice of ID number is a bit controversial, and we still haven't decided how we're going to create identifiers for these stations. Ideally we will be able to get something off the stations themselves. At the moment these are just rows in a database. And then these markers are new records basically. And then using Ilya's software, I can then go and do actual desktop surveying on that data. What it doesn't do though is add Wikidata tags. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. And this is a diagram of how Ilya's software works. I'll just try and explain it quickly. So essentially you get your data set. So I think he originally did things with petrol stations, and I'm trying to do this with charging stations. And so it enables government agencies to take huge data sets, release them onto OSM without the danger of A, creating duplicate records, or B, putting bus stops in the wrong places, for example. So you get your data set, you run it through a script, which you then upload to his audit software. Once the community has completed the audit, you can then load that back into JOSM and then upload that data into OSM. Now, I'm currently at this stage, so I've got a verified data set, it's about 140 electrical charging stations, but I decided, because of this nervousness about government releasing open data and this concern that the provenance of the data may be in question, I'm trying to currently add Wikidata tags as I do that. And Wikidata does have the ability to do that, and it can act as a permanent ID for OSM users. So I may not be understanding this perfectly well, but to someone like me, the idea of having a Wikidata tag on an OSM record is highly, highly appealing, because then I have complete confidence that I can monitor that record now and in the future. And then I can prove to decision makers and people in government who are nervous about open data that I've got oversight of the provenance of that record. So at the moment there are quite a lot of Wikidata tags in OSM. There's 1 million or so, and then it's further broken down based on whether they've been added to nodes, waves and relations. So this is a good start. Hopefully we can get more. I certainly hope to add this tag to everything I'm adding to OSM. And it turns out Wikidata does have an EV charging station identifier as well. So this is hopefully what I'm going to be using when I add the record to OSM. I also want to add the record to Wikidata as well. But this is where I'm getting a bit stuck. Because do I really want to add 141 charging stations to Wikidata? The relationship between...
They'd be gone in a week if you did. They'd be gone in a week if you did.
Yeah, this is the worry, you see. This is the worry. So I want to improve OSM using Wikidata, but in order to be able to add a relation ID to OSM, I'm still trying to work up an approach, and that's why I'm here today, so thanks for that. It's a good job I didn't try it already. And also, you're right, because actually at the moment, there aren't any Wikidata items that have the EV charging station property. Okay. So they're not actually being used to tag spatial locations. It's just a descriptor, and this is what I'm currently getting to grips with. That's actually everything I've got to say now. So thanks again for having me. If anyone's got any ideas what I can do next, that would be amazing. But I think we're getting there. We're getting there. We're definitely committed to adding as much open spatial data to OSM as we can. And so the next step is to then see how we can get data onto Wikidata as well, and then take advantage of reciprocal links, which some people have been working on already. And so the idea is that you can add a relation to OSM, add a Wikidata property or a Wikidata statement, and then in Wikidata you can also add OSM relation ID, so that you can go backwards and forwards between the two systems. And a few people are working on this currently. I think the German OSM people have done the most. So that's everything. Thanks for having me.